What is up, guys? Another new video for this channel, and we're gonna be talking about, you know what it said in the title, my origins in self-improvement. I started it when I was like 13 years old, to say. Um, I had a rough childhood, to say, growing up. You know, grew up in a family that was broken. I really did not see, how a relationship would work, like between mom and dad. I really did not see that. And looking back, that has really affected me in a way. Later on, when I would be in school, I couldn't talk to people. Even my parents had, my mother, my mother had, you know she was also awkward. So I grew up with her, and so I was growing up pretty awkward. I couldn't really speak to people and stuff. Like, I felt super shy. uh I was shy to go to the bathroom, to ask, how at school you had to ask to go to the bathroom, like, really. And so, at school, I really found it a hard time to speak to people. You know, I see other kids, they would have their friends and all that, but I really didn't. I was that kid that was all left out. And that led me to growing self hate in myself. Like, I hated myself. Like, I'd do anything to not be that self. Like, it was a deep hate. And looking back, it actually makes me very sad. Makes me very, very sad. But it's not my fault, to say. But it does make me very sad, that hate. That hate, and not having like that person to, besides my parents, to speak to, so that I could really improve, to say, and not be that person. Like, as a kid, I wanted to become great. I wanted to become strong. I wanted to become, now that I have the word masculine, I wanted a sense of masculinity, which is why I really did not like school, to say, because it wasn't a place where you got to become masculine. Like, it makes you more feminine. You're listening to a teacher. You can't speak up for yourself in school, or else you would get detentions and suspensions and all that. So you couldn't really, speak up for yourself, or you couldn't really speak up for yourself, or you couldn't really yeah, I got speak. You really did not learn interactions, social interactions, because your teacher would shut you up when you would speak to another kid, the kid next to you. So growing up of that, grew up with that, school, elementary school. But not only that, I was also made fun of. Made fun of by kids, and I would, you know, feel upset. I wish I had more. I wish I really had a friend, or something to help me out, so that I could, you know, speak to, maybe see, improve ourselves, become better, and, to really, be that person that, everyone dreams of, that masculine guy, that's confident, um, is happy with himself, who's able to protect himself and others, has great social skills, loves himself, has discipline, and all that. Yeah, I really did find a hard time speaking to kids back in elementary and into middle school. Like, the things did not get better. Like, I lacked the social skill. By then, I made at least one or two ish. I wouldn't call them friends, but people that I'd speak to, at school, and they were okay, but they were okay for one of them. After that, the other one, he would be that one to, later on, figuring out, to talk bad behind me, make fun of me when I'm not there. So Yeah. So yeah, really thinking back at it, I did not know the meaning of a friend or like socials interactions and all that. And after I ended up moving, I moved to a county and I moved to the suburbs. That's where everything changes. You know, that's where everything changes. I would go out, the places I would really go to, back in the city, like where I lived, would be church, food market, park. Those are the places I went to. One of my favorite things to do as a childhood was it was actually church. Like, oh yeah, I was religious. People would make fun of me being like this church boy, this weakling, loser, pathetic guy, not cool, and all that. And now looking back at it, I'm like, you know, fuck that. Screw that because screw them because religion has a lot to do with self improvement and you know and being able to learn how to delay gratification when it's so hard to. It has a lot of great ideas. And church, I really liked it. I really liked the peace with it. I'd go in, I'd pray. I liked sitting in the seat, and there'd be like Christ would be in front, and I would just like sit there and just look at him and like close my eyes. I really didn't know what to say, but I just like pray. Like I was just like there, just sat there. I really enjoyed that. Um, as I had a broken family, at least my mom was religious, and so she would like teach me how to pray, and so I eventually knew how to pray. I eventually knew how to like pick up a Bible, and it was so beautiful, so beautiful. I really enjoyed that. I'm thankful for my mom for that. You know. So now moving into the suburbs, that becomes a lot more harder. Queens, I'd walk to church. Now here you need a car because the church is like 10, 15 minutes away. And so that really becomes an issue because since my parents did not know how to drive and all that, and like my mom did not know how to drive, that becomes a really big issue. Like, I found myself going to church less because of it. And so, yeah, from there, I'd go on to middle school. Like, I was in middle school still when the whole move happened. And I was like, man, like, school, man, these kids are different. Like, back in like where I lived, there was a lot of like, dude, you're right, Hispanics, blacks and like Indians. But now like here there's a lot of gringos, there's a lot of white people and all that. And I wasn't used to ever seeing one actually in my life, except for those like white teachers at school. Those are probably like one of the only ones. Or like whenever we go on a field trip to like the farm or something, that would be the only places where I actually would see like white people. And after that, afterwards, like, nah, I did not see any. And so, it was like very interesting. I did not adapt at first because they were like totally different people. They're totally athletic. Like, everything for them was sports, 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 sports. And I really did not understand it. And I still do not understand it to this day. I don't like watch sports or anything. I don't know. I really do not see like I don't see the point of it. I don't like it. But they play sports and all that, and that was pretty fun. And how like many sports they did, like it was very different. It was a completely different experience what I was in like the city. It was a very very different experience. And so finding out like that, that was like that was interesting. It started to get interesting because I would see like kids playing sports, and that made me want to play sports. And so eventually I ended up doing sports. I did wrestling, lacrosse. So, those were like some fun things I did. So yeah, in middle school I really found it hard, as well to make friends. And that's when I learned really a couple of lessons. Like, that the school system is a like failure. They can't protect kids from like bullying and all that because I started to get bullied, and after that eventually, like, I got to a point where, someone tells, like, the principal and all that I was getting bullied, and so eventually, like, they told everything, and I still do not know to this day who it really was that snitched and that, like, went and told. And so I ended up snitching as well. Like, I was the one that snitched, and so to this day, like, those kids still hate me. Like, they want to, like, beat me up and stuff, but I'm not really afraid of it anymore because I'm learning how to defend myself and get into the best shape as possible, and to try to, like, ignore, like, not be around them. you know really simple. Like, if they're if they want to attack me or know that, and they start to attack me, then that's when I'll defend. That's when I'll attack them back. That's when I'll beat them up. But, like, if nothing's happening, like, nothing. I'm not gonna do anything. They don't do anything. You know, let it be. But yeah, so that's when I learned that. So eventually, I became aware that I started seeing school, like, differently and all that, and I really hated being in middle school. Like, didn't like how you had to memorize things and put it on paper and stuff. But, like, anyways, going on the social part, because this is where, like, the social part hurts me a lot. I people would want to make friends with me. Girls would want to, like, come up to me and actually, like, start talking to me. Like, when I first came, girls, like, they actually, I see that, they have an interest in me or something, like, as a new kid, pretty good looking, you know, they had an interest in me, but I lacked those skills, and so I ended up bombing a lot of opportunities in the way, and so yeah, that's how it really came. And, like, seeing how I bombed those opportunities, it really made me, like, upset. It really made me like, it made me deeply upset, and so, like, inside of my heart, I deeply decided to change and all that. So that's when, like, I got into, like, sports and stuff. And then after that, in my final year of middle school, I ended up meeting this one kid named Michael, and that kid completely, like, changed my life. You'd, like, kid completely changed my life, to say. Like, I still remember days and how, he strived. He had this crazy dream of becoming, like, the strongest, like, guy ever, like, something like that. But, I would always talk to him, and he always, like, did interesting things. He would be training. He had a boxing, like, thing. He had, like, a sword, and so he'd train and all that. And I'd be like, man, I wish I was him. And seeing that he was like that, and, like, seeing that, I wanted to be like him, and so I asked him to train with him. But now that I realize, like, he says yes, but realizing, why did I say that? Let's go back into, man, what am I saying? What am I saying? Okay, so I ended up meeting this kid. He completely changes my life, and so I want to train with that kid, and so I eventually do. I do a couple of lessons with him, but now that he demands, like, push-ups, and I really found it hard, to deal with push-ups, and so I couldn't train with him anymore because of the push-ups, and I was not, like, ready for it. And so that's when it hits me. That's when it's like, man, I let this other opportunity go, and this kid, was giving me an opportunity to change my life forever, become the strongest person I could be, like, myself. Like, I deeply desire to change. I did not have the desire to be the strongest guy ever, but, like, I had a desire to become strong. And now realizing it, like, now that I found the word, I wanted to become masculine, and so he had that, and I wanted that, in terms of, like, self-defense, in terms of strength, in terms of mentality, because he had a good mentality. He'd always go with, like, go do it do this every single day, even if it means doing, like, substituting for, like, easier exercise. So, like, just keep on going it no matter what. he had that mentality inside at like such an early age, like 12, 13 years old, like already with that mentality. And so, man, I admired that and I wanted that from him. And so, couldn't do the push ups. And so, that's when, it ended. And that's when, like, the training ended. And I'm like, I'm not, now that I've met this kid, now that I, like, really found the person that I want to envision, that the person I want to be, like, the person I want to be, no matter what. So I decided to look into like sports. I told my mom I wanted to play sports so I could do like, and so I could do like sports, and be able to get into my like strongest self possible. But that was not, what am I saying? Okay, so I asked my mom if I could become the strongest version possible. And so she says yes, and so I eventually ended up doing sports. I ended up doing wrestling, lacrosse, and that's what, and I really enjoyed it, but I couldn't do it afterwards because of transportation, and since my parents couldn't pick me up from work, like they couldn't pick me up from all the practices and the games, that like I couldn't do any more sports. And so that's when I decided to get into like all different types of like activities, like working. I wanted to get into work so I could like earn my own money and like really see what it's like to earn money, see what it's like to be in a job, see if it's like, looking back at it, like see if it's like something that I want to do, like see if it's something that I want to do in the future or something, like seeing what I want to do in the future, like it give me a sense of purpose, like one step closer to my purpose by getting a job. And so I ended up doing that, and I still keep on doing it to this day. And I'm really seeing it matured me a lot. I know this for sure. I do not want to work a job in my life. I want something that's like a career. I want a career. I don't want a job. I want a career. I don't want a job. I want a career. So, just looking back at it, it made me like think I don't want to be like this. I gotta find my something that I really like, so I could turn it into a career. And now like this, which is like, okay, it's making me money, but like I don't like it, and I feel like I'm not even getting paid to what I'm worth, because I'm getting paid to the eyes of the owner. So it's just kind of like school. It's kind of like school when it comes to grades and stuff. But yeah, it's that one kid that ended up changing my life, and so eventually from that point forward, I decided to get into this. And so the first thing I do, like I ended up finding like a self improvement type of guy. The first guy I met was Alpha M. Uh, and after that, it kind of like went down. I ended up like seeing videos of TMF, like Man Fashion, like I think it is, How to Beast, Based Zeus. I ended up seeing like videos on psychology, on emotional, like no, not emotional, but like mental health and stuff, like no fab. So that's when this whole idea of no fab like comes in and all that. I'm like shocked because finally I'm like shocked because I didn't know that there was a movement before that. Like I'm like I thought like you know everyone did it. I thought like everyone liked it. And I thought I'm like the weird one that doesn't like this shit. And so no, I ended up trying that out, and I really found out how weak I was. I couldn't go a week without doing that crap. And so yeah, eventually finding that you know I ended up getting into this rabbit hole of watching self-improvement videos and all that. And so eventually I get into like working out. That would lead me to getting into working out, reading books, checking on finances, learning skills. And right now I'm at the point where I'm like stuck with all that, and I'm trying to like really now like get into the microscopic level and see what I need, see what it is, see what I need to become the greatest version of myself. So really, looking at that, I ended up, you know, getting into it. I'd go out for runs, although I wasn't consistent. I was not consistent. I lacked something in my life. I lacked the belief. And now looking back at it, it had something to do with my childhood. Like, not receiving that enough like love from my parents. So that leads me to like living with the consequences of, you know, self like self doubt. And so yeah, pretty much I've been in the journey, and you know, I have dreams, I have goals, to achieve. And so yeah, eventually like on that, you know, 2020 comes, and that's when everything changes. That's when like COVID comes in, and I'm like, I had like this feeling. I'm like COVID, while everyone's panicking. I'll be like, nah, this is a great opportunity to actually improve myself. Actually, like do something that I like, and not be in a fucking school, like learning some like depressing crap and memorizing stuff, and sadly forgetting them. Like 2 years later, when I devoted so much time, so much effort into like it. And so I'm so happy. And eventually I ended up like it ended up being a good time. I meet other like YouTubers. I'd spend more time working out. That's when like Jordan Green comes up. Like that's when like his videos, and one of the first videos, like the first video I ever watched from this guy was 30 days of no fap benefits and all that. Like what are his benefits? What did he get? And so I don't know fap, and so that guy kind of like that guy looking at how he was and all that. I'm like, I want to get to a point where that guy is. So I really enjoy this guy. This guy gives some good advice for me to improve. Like and so I ended up like using some of his advice to improve myself. So yeah, that when like COVID hit, I was working out hard. I got to a point where I was able to do like 50 push-ups. I remember that day when I was doing that, and I did 50 push-ups. I felt like on top of the mountain, because like I did something that I never ever ever thought in a million years I would ever do. Like that sounded like impossible for me, because I was always out of fit. I was out of shape. The society around me was out of shape. No one worked out. Like as a kid, and now that I'm here, it became hard, to really emulate. It became hard. It really became hard to get rid of that bad habit of like not of like laziness and all that, sitting down and not like dedicating time to your body, working out, and being sure that you're able to maintain yourself today and maintain yourself tomorrow, because we're gonna get old. And so that's when like I started seeing real growth. And like that time I ended up doing push-ups. I was meditating a lot and all that. And but eventually I ended up scaling. I ended up scaling up. No fap. Ended up reaching like 6 months into this. It was insane. It was crazy how much no fap I thought, and I thought I'd never be able to like go 6 months. Like that would sounded like insane to me, and I was a completely different person, which is the person that I am now. I'm completely different, although I still do have mistakes that I want to fix, and I'm looking for new strategies on how to like fight no fap laziness, because those are the two things. Those are the biggest problems that I have with my life right now, and I'm really looking at it. It doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with like my childhood and all that, and so how I need to heal from all that. And so right now I've been looking at that, So that story of like improvement and all that really did change me. That improvement, it changed me. Now that I ended up like relapsing, and I haven't been able to get up since like back then. Like I haven't been able to go back to that golden age of 6 months. I haven't been able to go to back to those good times. It's been like pretty harsh because it's not like no fap. It's also about like my mind and stuff. My mind. How can I get rid of fapping? And I realized that I cannot get rid of fapping because my body, since I'm a man, since I'm young, my testosterone is high. My testosterone is like higher than like ever. Although I'd say it really isn't. I gotta say this. It's not high, but since I'm young and I have like testosterone, I'm full of like I'm full of testosterone to say. Although I do not have a lot of it. Um, I'd say that it really is a key factor to why I am what I am, and right now I'm really learning on how like it's an energy and all that, and how I could transfer it into willpower, into power that I could use to do other things. So yeah, I've been doing that lately. So that's been my story to tell you guys about my journey of self improvement. I hope you guys really enjoyed this long video. This video is unfiltered. It has no edits in terms of like cutting out. Like everything here is raw. And so yeah, I hope I was able to relate to you guys uh, in a deeper level. I hope you guys like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Keep on sharing it to other people that may need this like type of help or motivation, or like someone to relate to, because I'm obviously not the best at it, and I feel like my journey has just like begun. Like I'm getting closer every single day. I'm at least getting better, at least 1%. I'm doing at least something better, at least one thing. So anyways guys, remember to like and subscribe. Remember to no fap, no no PMO, please. No PMO, bro. Bye. So guys, remember to like and subscribe to this new YouTube channel, and keep grinding guys. Peace.